we have a little bit of drama that's been going around, and everyone's talking about it. And I thought, maybe we should get our thoughts and your thoughts on what's happening around when it comes to the back and forth of Angel Reese, and then you have the Caitlin Clark, which obviously is like, that took place in the national championship game, and then we have seen the aftermath with the, whether you kind of are criticizing Caitlin Clark for what she did originally, or Reese for what she's doing now, and a lot of talk. Then you have all the Biden first lady coming out saying she wanted to, invite, and she didn't or come out and say that she was inviting both, but like she pretty much was like, oh, the way both teams played, I could see both of these teams coming out to the White House kind of thing. And which I thought was the most ridiculous thing ever. We're not in participation trophy world anymore, Scotty. We're done with
that word again, Chris?
Participation.
There you go. There you go.
It slips. It's the words, the letters.
It happens. I just want to make sure. I didn't know if I wanted you to say it again to know whether you knew how to say it or you just said it wrong.
I was just talking really fast, and it just didn't.
Sure.
I digress.
Yeah. I had confidence you were going to get it.
He had a wreck moment.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I think basically this has come out where, the White House is like, no, we're only inviting LSU. But that didn't stop Reese from saying, oh, this is trash. Why? Which it was at first. But now she's kind of taking it to a whole different level of like, I'm not even going to go to the White House, and I'm going to go to the Obama's house instead. I'm just like, can you just let it rest? Just let it just go. Why are we doing all the drama? Now she's obviously going to be polarizing going into next season. She's a big time name. And people are going to be watching her from here on out because she's in the news, right? So, there's a lot of different angles here. Some people are mad at Caitlin Clark for doing this in the first place, all the talk, trash talk. And then some people are mad only at Reese for, following up and doing, her thing on the court with the ring thing and the can't see me. And it's kind of exhausting, but it's I mean, Scotty, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts in the chat on this? G-Girl, love Clark. However, why so many threes? Hey, she's the Steph Curry of women's college basketball right now,
She still hit like 8.
I'll let her shoot.
She didn't have her best game, but like I would argue maybe don't give up 102 points.
True.
On defense in the game, and maybe you have a shot. So, yeah. But this whole Clark Reese thing, like listen.
Exhausting.
I think it's stupid in the first place. Like the whole Caitlin Clark, and then I think everyone thinks like the LSU players were mad at Caitlin Clark because she did this little thing. I think it was more that she wasn't guarding that player for South Carolina, and they took that as disrespectful. Which it's not disrespectful.
No,
if she's not going to guard you, do something about it.
Hit a shot. Hit a shot. If this was, we didn't get upset when Draymond Green did that earlier on in the season with Russell Westbrook in one of the NBA games.
In fact, we laughed at it.
We laughed at it.
We thought it was hilarious. Now, do I really care about what Reese did? Am I offended by what Reese did at the end of the game?
No.
Going out of her way to go, in Clark's face as much as possible and do that and point like the ring, like you see here. Not really. I thought it was kind of weird. Just like go celebrate with your team. But
yeah.
At the end of the day, like, did it bother me? No, it didn't bother me at all. And then the follow up that you talked about. Well, first of all, I can explain the Jill Biden comment, Chris. Okay. This is very easy to explain. All right. Jill Biden was in Denver at the time that she had this like press conference where she stated that they should invite Iowa as well. Okay. Clearly what happened here, Chris, is she got high before that presser. Okay. She had some marijuana. She had some weed. And when you have weed for the first time, you're like, let's just all love each other. Let's just bring everybody in and let's have a great time.
Kumbaya.
So that's very easy to explain because there's no other rational reason for why she would say that ever. That was really stupid. But it's also really stupid for Reese to come back and be like, we'll like getting offended by that. Like, stop being offended by it. Jill Biden let's be honest, didn't have a say in that anyway, and just shouldn't have said it. It was really stupid. And As far as what bothers me more about Reese is then her being like, "We'll go to the Obamas instead." Like that's the worst part about what she said
It's
or done
ridiculous.
in this whole thing. Like, stop. Like, all you're trying to do is like divide more. Like, can we kumbaya again, Chris? Get that kumbaya back in. Like, let's not take everything so personally and like
Oh.
listen, whatever, and assume like obviously Joe Biden's. I don't know. Let's not make this a race thing, okay? Hopefully, I don't like doing that in this situation. And Caitlin Clark like was asked about that on ESPN, and she was just like, "Yeah, no, LSU won. They deserve it."
She's
They're
handling
not
like
gonna
she
go.
should.
Iowa was never gonna go. So chill out, Reese. I feel like Reese likes having like a chip on her shoulder. That's just kind of who she is. That's how she drives herself.
Yeah.
And that's how she's probably become the player she is. She just constantly has a chip on her shoulder, which is great for driving yourself basketball wise, but then it's a little much when you say like, "Oh, we'll just go to the Obamas then." Like,
Come on.
stop.
But yeah, I mean, this is all competitive. Like, I love this I think this is the best thing for women's basketball. You don't ever have these kind of stories with the top players going at it, talking trash to each other. I mean, you have Caitlin Clark not guarding people out there like she's Draymond. Like, I love that. That's what makes it that much more exciting to like see these insanely good athletes like we do any other athlete. Like, we see them all the same because that's how we would be if I talk a lot of trash when I was in sports. Like it's just one of those things that it's refreshing to see something that's competitive and exciting that you would see in any other sport. And I'm for it. I'm with it. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately it's good because it's getting people more talking to it. I think a lot of things helped women's game this year. You had the star power with like Caitlin Clark making the national championship. You had a final that was 102-85. You didn't have like the men's where one team failed to get to 60, Chris. Like what we know about sports is like people like watching greatness. And no offense, when one of the teams only gets to 59, you're not watching a great offensive performance. And people like offense, right? Like defense is fine and good and wins games, but like from a watching standpoint, people like watching greatness on the offensive end. And there's no doubt in my mind, like the women's Final Four was more entertaining.
Way.
We had people over during the Final Four for the women's on last Friday night, and I think I mentioned this on Sunday's show, but I was just like, the shot making is so much better. They're so much more skilled in the women's game, and like the men's is about athletes and being athletic, and AAU balls kind of ruined it because you don't necessarily develop the skills like you should. Now, the guys in the NBA are phenomenally skilled. Don't get me wrong, but the college game to me is suffering right now in the men's side. And the women's side has never been. I mean, those were the most watched games in the history. I know the Final Four. I don't know. I didn't see on the national championship game, but that Final Four Iowa game was like the most watched women's college game ever, I believe.
It's only going to get bigger and better. And you know what? I mean, Caitlin Clark's coming back next year. Is Reese? She's coming back.
Oh yeah, she's not eligible. Like the WNBA, you're not eligible until you complete, I think, your junior year. So both of them are coming back.
Oh, it's gonna be so good. I'm excited for that. I want to see that next year. It's gonna be amazing. Let's see. I think there was a lot of questionable officiating in the tourney, says Riley. I mean,
yeah, in general on both sides.
Yeah.
Like, too many foul calls and too many stupid calls.
It's fine not to guard players. Who cares? I mean, it's a strategy, right? I mean,
I have no problem with that.
What's the difference between letting them go like within 3 feet of closing them out or 8 feet? Well, I mean, it's the same thing, regardless. Agreed, says Gigi. Part I don't like about it was she specifically chased down Clark to get in her face with it, and that's not cool. I mean, here's the thing: like, you're in the heat of a game. You're at the end of a game. You're fired up. I mean, why do you think it's like after a press when the game is over and they stick microphones in your face? Like, you're gonna get responses that you might not, normally get. And they're going to be fired up one way or another, whether they won and they're like amped up or they lose and they're pissed off. Like when you're on the cusp of winning and everything else. Like, you want to, there's that dominance. There's that, aspect of, hey, we're competitors. We're going after it. I want to be the best. I don't know. I see it. I don't see it as egregious as a lot of other people are seeing it. I think part of the whole situation too is that people had to think that that any attention is good attention, and now people are talking about her, and that's good.
For sure. Especially people were already talking about Caitlin Clark, maybe not Angel Reese quite as much, and now, as Chairman mentions later on there with the NIL, and these players could stay longer because they might have the opportunity to make more just doing NIL in college than they would even playing in the WNBA.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's kind of like when the PGA Tour a couple of years ago started that whole popularity payment thing.
Yep.
And Koepka and DeChambeau were going back and forth. And I think part of that might have been real, but part of that was definitely
fabricated.
Oh, yeah. Where they were just going over the top because they knew that would get them an opportunity to make some money and be in the headlines and the news.
Yeah. Absolutely. So there you go. I'm all here for it. I'm excited to see what happens next season.